Could be our best episode ever. We don't know yet.
Probably.
We're finding out.
Never know.
Yeah.
Right now on the Afterthoughts podcast, which is starting episode 71. Welcome to all of our Afterthinkers. Happy fasting to those of you that are fasting right now. And we hope you enjoyed our last episode. If you missed it, we talked all about fasting and what it is, why we do it. And today we're going to break into talking about purpose.
Yep.
Hoping that these two will find theirs. We're
By
also
the
going
end
to
of this episode,
these
Doug
two will
will
find
know his purpose.
You guys, are you promising me that?
Yes.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
People were upset, though we did jump straight into the conversation, and some people like that. Of course, many missed the banter. A lot of people have no idea what's going on in sports, so just a couple updates.
I like to think real quick that there's somebody out there who only gets their sports information from the first few minutes of Afterthoughts.
Someone told me that. She was like, I don't really pay that much attention to sports, but I'm kind of getting into some more stuff because I listen to the podcast and you guys
Nice.
talk about it.
Ethan's dream
A good
has
amount.
come true.
My purpose
Your purpose.
being fulfilled,
I
a
will.
dream realized.
You have.
National championship for college football is Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Yes.
Who cares? No one cares. UT loss was
Shout
crushing.
out to UT.
It was tough,
Great
man.
Crushing. Great.
Crushing night.
Excited for next year.
Yes.
They're here to stay, but that was really painful.
Yes, it was. Yep. Broncos.
Broncos made it to the playoffs.
Broncos, Bills.
We made it to the playoffs. man.
That's-
And we hung in there for the first half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
them missing a field goal right before halftime was
And
crushing.
it was a good kick too.
yeah, just doink. Those are the worst.
Oh man.
But
a 50-yarder like that in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
tough.
But
NFL playoffs
yeah.
are the first round were not very good games, so we're hoping for good games in the second, the divisional round. The Bills-Ravens game is going to be
I can't wait for that.
electric.
What are your hopes and
Ravens.
dreams for the playoffs and the Super Bowl?
Mm.
Now that the Broncos are officially not part of it.
I'm gonna say Eagles, Ravens.
Mm.
That's not.
That's not
That's
bad.
just
Give
what
me
I
one
hope.
team. Well, who's your team?
Who do you want?
I'm gonna pick the Eagles for our boy Matt Marino.
Yeah, I was going to do that, but I really do want the Lions to finally.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been a tragedy
That's
of
true.
franchise
Mhm.
for so long. And I on the AFC side, anyone but the Chiefs. I don't care who it is, just anyone but the Chiefs. Please
Yeah.
God, please God. I'm fasting and praying right now for this. Anyone but the Chiefs.
Yes, yes.
We'll
about
get
you?
to it. We'll get to it. But in my sermon illustration,
Oh yeah,
when I pulled the tools out of the toolbox,
Mhm. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
how
I
about
almost had Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce instead of you two. But
well.
we'll get to that.
that? Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
The Lions, or
Few things to say.
I actually love Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Josh Allen is awesome.
He's awesome,
He's a
man.
cool dude.
Even though they beat the Broncos,
Lions Bills would be kind of cool.
It
Those
would
are two
be
cities
Lions,
and teams
Bills.
that haven't gotten to.
I don't think anybody would complain about.
Kayla,
Lions,
who are you
Bills.
rooting for?
Yeah, I'm excited for all the teams.
Good answer.
Yep.
Way to- thank you for remaining neutral.
Yeah.
And not saying
That's what sports is about. Just
Uh-huh.
tying.
just happy for everyone.
Everybody's trying so
Yeah.
hard.
Hopefully, we just
Yeah.
have so many ties.
I mean, I'm happy for all of them except for the Chiefs.
Good for you.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I had to learn that one.
Come
All
a
right.
long way.
My brother's a big Chiefs fan, so
There.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry to turn this to the worst case scenario ever, but there are now rumors that Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders are talking to each other
Nope.
Really?
about
Nope.
the Cowboys open head
You
coaching
can't
job.
take it from
Yeah,
Boulder.
but I can see it though.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He's-
don't know what I'll do. I don't know what my life will look like if Deion leaves. But I know he will. But if it's right now, man,
Gosh, just
that
a
is
couple
gonna
more
hurt
years.
so
Would
bad.
be so great.
I can see it though.
He would. Yeah.
I'm praying against it as hard as I can.
I feel like Dallas. I feel like the Cowboys are such a scene,
I know.
and he's
Exactly.
the guy. For
Yeah,
that.
he is, man.
It would
And you
just,
couldn't blame him for
Right.
taking a
Of
job like
course.
that.
Of course.
But man, would it be a bummer for us?
And Jerry
Wow.
would kind of want him to create prime culture,
Yeah.
just like he had
Oh, yeah.
run of the mill to do in Boulder.
He would just
Full on
have
permission. He would
Oh,
have
yeah.
full on permission in
just
Dallas.
so many resources.
Yeah,
all the
for
resources.
But
sure.
would he have the permission to make all the decisions he wants? Because Jerry Jones is the most controlling owner.
That's a good point.
Like he does not let his guys actually just do what they're best at because he needs to get his hand in it.
And
he
you can't
messes
just you can't
everything up.
recruit in the NFL. You
Yeah.
have to trade and you have to draft.
Yeah.
So you can't just.
Steph has some family that are big Cowboys fans, and they were here. And for some reason, we all saw Jerry Jones, a picture of him, and Zeke, my 5-year-old, was there. And he's like, "Who's that guy?" And I was like, "That is a crazy old man that's ruining your uncle's, these guys' lives,
Uh-huh.
your cousins' lives."
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Who is that guy? He's
Jerry Jones.
He's a manager, but more of a micro kind.
He's the most.
Microregiment.
He is yeah.
So there's your sports update. Anyone but the Chiefs, I guess for me, go Notre Dame. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I just,
Yeah.
Ohio State is the worst
For Rudy.
Can't cheer for Ohio
entity.
State.
For Rudy,
Yeah, for
man.
Rudy. We can
There
root
you
for
go.
Rudy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Quick thing on fasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been reading the book by Jensen and Franklin that we recommended last week.
Yeah.
We had talked about David and Daniel and a few of the Old Testament fasting things,
Yeah.
but it has illuminated to me how much fasting is in the Bible that I never have caught. Made a list. People who fasted in Scripture.
Let's go.
Wow.
So Jesus, obviously,
It's the first time we've ever had
40
notes.
days.
It's the first time we've ever had a list.
Oh yeah.
I'm all about
This
it,
is
man.
a
Let's
professional
go.
podcast, okay?
We are
I have a list
professionals.
with notes.
Yeah.
Jesus began his ministry, obviously, 40 days
Right.
prayer and fasting. Moses received the 10 Commandments, 40-day fast. David fasted. Daniel fasted while praying for his people and found himself in situations he never would have guessed.
I would say Daniel, if he was here, he would say, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did in Babylon without fasting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Crazy story about the angel that comes to him after while
dude.
he's fasting. Crazy
Oh,
story.
man.
Solomon.
That happened to me 2 days ago.
You should tell
Michael
that.
is like, hey, man, sorry, dude.
Bury the lead.
Solomon, who had everything,
Yeah.
he fasted. In 1 Kings chapter 3.
Really?
Esther called the people
That's right.
to a fast
That's
when their
right.
backs were up against the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hannah fasted for a child.
She did.
She did.
Mhm.
Joshua fasted for 40 days. The Apostle Paul, 3 and 14-day fast noted in Acts. Peter was fasting when he got the vision
Yeah, that's right.
that all food was clean.
Of the
He was
blanket with all
fasting.
with the food
And that
on
led
it.
him to Cornelius' house, which is one of the most important stories in the New Testament.
Yeah.
And may I just say, when you're fasting, to say, no, I'm not going to eat that food that is in front of me
Yeah.
takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah. For
Get
God to
up,
be like,
Peter.
this is the moment I'm
Kill
putting
and
this
eat.
vision of food in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal.
Brutal. Joel calls for a fast that will lead to the pouring out of the Spirit of God that we see happen in the book of Acts.
Yeah.
Jehoshaphat called Israel to fast, and it led them to a victory where it took them 3 days to collect all of the spoils of their victory. 3
Jeez.
days. In a battle they were not going to win.
No.
Elijah, 40 days, got new direction and freedom. Job, in his suffering, prayed and fasted and remained faithful. Wild.
Wow.
Joseph had to fast when he was in prison. He didn't have a choice, but he was fasted.
Forced.
In Judges 20, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Fast and pray
Uh-huh.
for that battle. I never know how to say Manasseh, this one. It's one of the, like, you see I don't know. Manasseh. If you know, comment the word. And then
Manny?
tell us how to pronounce it. Fasted. Judah fasted. Ezra fasted. Manasseh.
Found it.
I bet Jonah
job,
fasted.
Manasseh.
I bet Jonah
Manasseh.
fasted while he was in the fish.
3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Unless he was eating the food that the whale had eaten.
But whales
Would you do
eat
that? Probably not.
very...
I would.
Just krill.
Yeah.
Ezra and Nehemiah,
I
they
will.
both fasted.
Sure.
Anna, the lady in the story when Jesus' parents bring him to
Oh,
the
dude,
temple.
Yeah.
Love fasting.
She was just always at the temple praying and fasting.
Yeah. In the story of Jonah, the Ninevites fasted as well. Their leader called them to fast. And there's probably more. I've been blown away by how big of a topic it is.
That's
in
crazy.
Scripture.
Yeah.
That's
It's
after
like
Jonah
when
got
you're-
there.
It's like when you're shopping for
Yeah.
a Jeep
Mhm.
and then you notice Jeeps everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When you look for fasting in the Bible, you're like, whoa,
It's
there's so
everywhere,
much stuff.
man.
The other really cool thing that I have learned that he opened up that I never thought about, Adam and Eve were led into sin through food, through the desire for
Right.
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Jesus came to redeem all of that and began his ministry by being hungry.
Nice.
And on the cross, he finished his ministry being thirsty.
Uh-huh.
Powerful.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
To all of
So-
you that are fasting, be encouraged to keep going. We're about halfway through when this is coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And keep going after what God has for you. Pray through, push through, because he's getting you ready for something in your life. He's going to do
Yeah.
things, but most importantly, you're going to just know him deeper and get closer to him. And that will go with you. So keep
It's not
after it.
easy.
No.
It's not
And
easy.
A day is coming very soon where you will start to see the countdown and it'll become very tangible.
Mm-hmm.
How many days are left? We're not quite there yet. And so in this middle ground, it can feel like you're like on the moon and you don't
Yeah.
really like have your
Yeah.
footing and you're confused.
Yeah.
Day by day, just keep going.
Yeah.
This 21 days is about training us to walk in a long obedience in the right direction
Yes.
towards
Okay.
following God.
I got to say something.
Very good.
Here's
Hit
when
me.
you
Oh.
let me give you some neurobiology
Dude,
here.
when Dr. Doug, Watch Doug is one thing, but when Dr. Doug comes out,
New segment.
it's one of my favorite
Dr.
things.
Doug.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for my wife, Stir the Pot Sam,
Oh, yeah.
in that comment
on
section.
the Valentine's episode, let's have her do a bit.
Done.
Absolutely.
That'd be
Oh
great.
yeah, that'll be Watch Doug and Stir the Pot Sam.
Steph
you
and I
get
will
us
just
both
sit here
going
and
at the
just
same
be
time.
like,
Yeah.
Wow. Big thoughts.
Okay, and we've mentioned this before, but it can't be said enough. How God designed your dopamine system to work in your brain
Nice.
is the molecule of motivation and reward. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel alive. And usually we associate it with the reward. So I'm going to work out and then I can have the cheeseburger at the end.
Mm.
So once you get to the cheeseburger after you suffer through a workout, that's when your brain kind of like dumps dopamine, and that's the big sort of celebration. And we kind of now live in a world where there's just so many different rewards all the time that we live in a state of our brains just dumping dopamine. We live for that stuff rather than the grind and for the journey. And what you have in front of you right now is an opportunity to tell your brain to not trick yourself, but I guess just kind of rewire some neurocircuitry in your brain to tell yourself, man, this journey and the grind and the effort and even a little bit of the pain, this is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
This isn't something I'm trying to get through
Nice.
until the end of this month when I can have that cheeseburger or that deep dish pizza. This is so if you're in a workout, we'll use that as a metaphor. And you can tell yourself when you are halfway through or 3/4 of the way through and you're on that run, you start to just tell yourself, I live for this part of it.
Yeah.
Because dopamine can be used for two things. It can be dumped in your brain for the reward, or it can be dripped quickly in the journey and the process. And that's the feeling you get when you're working towards a goal, you're working towards a reward, and you feel good because you're doing something, and you start to love that grind part. And if you dump dopamine for rewards, there's a finite amount of it, and that's enter addiction. And that's why you need the next one, and you feel low the next morning, and you need but if you drip it for the journey, there's an infinite amount of dopamine.
That's right.
And it's used for that motivation. But you gotta tell yourself it's not about the cheeseburger. It's about, this is what I live for right now. I'm not trying to get through it. This is changing me. This is sharpening my faith. This is sharpening my mind. This is making me better. This is tapping into, not that God's a formula, but stuff like favor and anointing and blessing don't come without sacrifice. And so you can kind of know right now, I am tapping into those things for my year. And if you start to just tell yourself that stuff rather than count down the days,
Dude,
you will start to enjoy it and be in it more, and you'll start to feel more alive now, as opposed to, I'm just going to be absolutely miserable until I can finally have a cheeseburger.
that's so good.
That's
man.
good.
Yeah.
I was doing a really hard workout called the Murph with Oliver a couple months ago. And the last piece of it is you have a weighted vest on, 20-pound weighted vest, and you're doing a mile at the very end. And we were halfway through that final mile after like an hour of working out. And we're just, you know the feeling. It's like, it's brutal. And he goes, you ever read, or you ever hear about the Spartans? Like the 300 Spartans? I was like, yeah. And he had just been reading a book, and he was telling me that during their like hell week, their like crazy training week, one of the things they talk about is in the middle of the training, which is like 2-a-days and doing crazy training and all that.
Yeah.
One of their philosophies is they learned how to smile and laugh in the middle of it.
Wow.
And he's telling me this as I'm like trying to catch my breath,
You're
like trying to finish this last mile and get to the finish line. And it was this really cool time to drop that on me, because he's going like, hey, one of the pieces of this is learning how to love the journey and love the right in the middle of the pain.
That's good.
When you can just go, that was just really hard, but we're laughing, we're together.
Yeah.
that just reminds me of that. That's that dopamine drip
Mhm.
that God created our brains to operate in.
That's how your brain is set up to function. And we just now have so many rewards
Yeah.
that you can kind
Don't
of live
struggle.
your whole life in that. You know what I mean? Go from social media, dump dopamine, to video game, dump dopamine, to loud music in my headphones, dump dopamine, to energy drink. And we can always be there, but then you're always kind of in like a depletion state.
Yeah.
But if you learn how it works, and you actually get the steady drip of it,
Oof.
as you're improving and as you're working and as you're grinding and as you're fasting and as you're doing disciplined habits, I mean, that's a superpower. And you fall in love with the doing it. I mean,
cool.
that's the most
Dude.
successful, accomplished, sanctified, like all the outcomes everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
If you can fall in love with the journeys it takes to get to all those outcomes,
I think that's how
then
people
you're gonna do
create
it.
sustainable lives of doing hard things. Like
Mhm.
whether it's working out or it's a practice of fasting regularly in your life, when you have learned to enjoy the process, you
Yeah.
want more of it.
Yeah.
Like when Murph became more of a workout we would all collectively do more often, it was like we started to have fun with it a little
Yeah.
more. And then you kind of like want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and that's how that stuff's supposed to be, but for most of us, it's not. Another incentive for pressing in a fast and not just waiting till it's over or just trying to like wishing it away. Eliminating food unclutters your spirit and makes you amazingly sensitive to the things of God.
Mm-hmm.
Fasting is not just a physical discipline, it's a spiritual feast.
Yeah.
I feel like in a fast, reading the Bible is like it's suddenly in 4K,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
you know, where
Yeah.
there's worship
Mhm.
is
Dude.
brighter.
Yes.
Things are just different spiritually when you are in a fast. And that is something that is to be treasured and enjoyed and feast on in a way that you just don't experience in other times. So keep feasting and enjoy that closeness and write down the things that God's speaking and saying, because there's just power.
Yeah,
in
when
your
you
experiences
when you
right
don't
now.
have all of the comforts that you usually go to, that the flesh usually goes to when you're up against it and you've come to the end of yourself, the only thing you actually have to rely on is the presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
And what you realize is what's always true all the time, that God's always with us and that he's always ready to go, hey, I'm right here and I'm your good shepherd and I'm with you. It's just that we have so many ways to hit the eject button and not tap into that presence.
All these people on that list, they all like were readied in a time of fasting for some crazy cool story, something God did, all of that, of course. But I look at that list of people and I'm like, man, they all knew God so deeply.
Yeah.
They had experiences with him that you're like jealous of when you read in the Bible. And sometimes I think those feel like impossible. Like, oh, well, they're in the Bible. So, but there were just people too that just were called by God and took him seriously and devoted themselves. And I'm like, man, I want more of those experiences in my life that would be worth stories of just how I experienced him and knew him. So keep going, keep fasting,
keep going.
Kayla.
Hi.
Kayla's back. Sorry we kicked you out of the last episode.
Yes.
Was that bad for your platform?
Super bad.
Questions with Kayla Incorporated.
Yeah. Start off the year. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
But that's
really
okay.
sorry.
Did you
Only from
lose
there.
followers?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah. Lost 1 million.
Wow.
Well, that
Just
gives
'cause,
you,
wow.
That's
Yeah.
that's not that much for you.
No. I'll get them back.
You got any questions for us? If you're new to the
Yeah.
Afterthoughts podcast, maybe your New Year's resolution for 2025 was to listen to the Afterthoughts podcast,
Yeah.
which is, in my opinion, one of the best resolutions you could have.
Yeah.
We love this segment called Questions with Kayla, whereas you might guess Kayla asks us questions. Go ahead.
Wow. Well, since you guys just talked about fasting, who's the fastest?
that's funny. Like in a foot race.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
I don't think it's me.
arrogant and say me. I think I'm a fast runner.
You are a really
I'm
fast
a
runner.
fast runner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to.
Are we talking sprinting or like a mile or?
That's up for you guys.
Yeah, because it would change. I think I'm winning of anything over 3 miles.
Oh, yeah?
I bet. I think I'll win a sprint,
Let's do it.
and I think I
right
could win the
now.
mile,
Okay.
but not 3.
Doug, can you
What do
win
you
the
run
2?
3 miles in?
The 2 mile?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan's got the 3. Doug's got the 2.
I think
We each specialized in. You have to decide that ahead of time planning a church. Who's going to do 1 mile? Who's going to do 2?
Yeah.
Who's going to do 3?
right.
Mm.
I would be low 20s for a 3-minute
Okay.
mile.
All right, that's pretty good. So you're like 7, set in the 7s.
I
for
would
your
say
splits?
like high 7s, 8. Probably. So it'd probably
21
be
to
like, let's say
24.
a 24-minute, 3-minute.
I'd probably do
miles.
something around that too.
Yeah.
So it'd be close.
Yeah.
Can't wait to race. Yeah, I think 24, 25 is like my most recent best 3-miler. So let's get out there.
Let's get out there.
Get out there.
Yeah,
Pull a
let's do it.
hamstring.
Yep. Great question.
But to answer your question, Floyd, Jesus is the fastest.
Yeah,
So
of course.
true.
Oh, of course.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he was
Um,
athletic.
Probably.
Didn't matter. He didn't need to be.
Probably.
Didn't need to be, no. Mm-hmm. God is, though.
He limited himself in lots of ways, so maybe he was trying not to be super
He sure
cool.
did. Yeah.
There's a funny scene in The Chosen.
Yeah, when they're
play a
playing.
game and they're
Yeah,
like
it's
throwing
awesome.
a ball.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Like they had to find the one like thing that he couldn't get. So it's like, let's make this no stakes.
Yeah.
Can't be great at
That was the writer's room
Yeah.
mindset. And I'm not saying that's biblically accurate, blah, 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 blah.
Where in the New Testament do you see Jesus playing a game?
Yeah. Comment if you think Ryan's right or wrong.
Yeah. This is so controversial, Ryan. Holy cow. I hope our church can survive this. Ryan saying, all right.
This isn't a debate of. This is a divide over.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
We are dividing the church right
This
now.
could split our friendships.
Okay, I'm going to South Austin to start a new church, Red Rock South Austin. Who's with me? Comment in the section.
Does anyone
It's all
know
about sports.
when does season 5 of The Chosen come out? Do you know?
I think
I'd like to
this
promote
spring.
that.
Aren't you the star of
It's
The
the
Chosen?
spring.
Shouldn't you know that?
Yeah,
I
man.
was the star of season 4.
Are
I
you
don't
in
think
this
we ever
season?
talked about that.
I'm not in season 5.
Ah,
You never talked about it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's kind of
He's
doesn't.
very humble.
Yeah. I try to keep my acting career separate
yeah,
from
from your
From
afterthoughts
his,
career.
from his running
my
career.
podcasting career, my 3 mile, 2 mile, 1 mile running career.
Yeah.
But we would like to promote The Chosen. So find out what day that is coming
Okay.
out on. And also, speaking of promotion, this episode is brought to you by Attacking Anxiety on My Hat, written
Yes.
by Sean Johnson, the best guy. Great book. Maybe you're new to hearing about this book. Go read Attacking Anxiety. And back to questions with Kayla.
Oh, thank you so much, Ethan. This question is from my own truly. Mine truly.
Remember ours truly?
Yeah, ours truly. My truly. Logan Mott singer.
Okay.
This
That's how you
question-
refer to your spouse. My truly.
Yes.
Yes. He said, would you guys rather play Augusta 5 times in your life? You get to use
Yes.
it like anytime. It's like cash in, you know?
It's going to be tough to whatever the other one is.
Yeah.
Better be good.
Or play Pebble Beach every single year for the rest of your life.
Oh, that's
Augusta 5 times for me.
that's a great question. I'm saying Pebble every year because that means I'm going out there every year.
Here you go. Okay. Ethan said Augusta.
Augusta.
Easy.
Tiebreaker.
Both.
Oh.
Man.
I would play
Dr. Doug
Augusta
strikes
and
again.
Pebble Beach every year.
Doug got us.
What is the number 1 golf course you'd play if you could play any?
Augusta.
Augusta.
Yeah.
As well, yeah.
There's a sacred element to that one.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Mhm.
For all of our afterthinkers, everyone's going to care a lot about this. The 3 of us, along with some other buddies, are involved in a year-long fantasy golf league, including Logan,
Yeah.
where we each have a team of golfers we drafted, and every week, based on the tournament, there's points, payouts, and we'll keep you up. Doug won week 1,
Job done.
first
Yeah.
tournament of the year.
I
You got
paid
the
out,
most points.
paid out $10.
$10.
Nice.
Congrats, dude.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yep.
Really excited for you. We'll
But
keep
we're
you guys.
fasting, spending money right now. That's one of the things me and Sam are fasting. So
You're saving it.
guess
can't
I'll
even spend the
I'll give you
$10.
guys the $10.
That's going to be, that's good. Well, you could
Perfect.
just,
Thanks, man.
because I can't see longer than 2 weeks in my life. So
but with,
That's the point of not spending.
with interest, it'll be $10.01.
wow.
When the-
Depends on the rate.
Maybe. So we'll try every week
We
to
said
let
no
you guys
spending.
know. We may
We
forget.
said no spending, but not no gambling. So I will go gamble.
Oh, geez. Now Doug's endorsing gambling. Ryan's
Oh,
saying
no.
non-biblical things. I'm trying
Gotta
to
get
hold
my
this
dopamine
podcast
somewhere.
together right now. Please pray for me.
Yes.
We'll try to give updates on our golf league because people care a lot about that. I know they will.
Man, I'll talk golf as much as you guys want to for the rest of this episode, though.
We could,
Oh, yeah.
but we shouldn't. Is that
Talk
all
about
from you,
delayed
Kayla?
gratification.
That's all from me.
Still
Then
waiting.
back to you.
For a
Kayla,
good round of
thank
golf in
you.
my life.
We look forward to another great year. Thank you
Thanks.
for re-signing with the Afterthoughts podcast to ask
Yes.
questions.
Yeah.
And you remember you have the chimes.
Oh yeah, we
If
need
you
to
ever
hang
want to
those
chime
up.
in, they're
Yeah, I
right
need
next
to-
to you.
Yeah, I need
If
to
you ever want to chime in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about whales and Granite, obviously.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What else did
Never
we talk
take
about?
whales for granted.
But before, that's the title of
All
this
right.
this episode.
Let's
Great job.
pray us out, Ryan. Yeah.
Never for Granite.
Never take
Gosh,
whales
that's
for granted. That's the title.
you shouldn't take them for granted.
No,
Granted.
obviously not. They're awesome.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And because they could drown, and I didn't know that. We don't know how long we'll have whales. Some
Isn't
of these
that-
whales drown. I didn't know that. That's hard to hear.
All right, what's your favorite kind of whale?
Well, obviously the orca because of Free Willy, like that
Yeah.
movie,
Which came
so
out 30
good.
years ago.
30?
This last week.
Wow.
Oh, this was our segment called "Feel Old Yet."
Mhm.
Yes, that's such a good
Did
movie.
we go
So
see that in the
good.
theaters? No.
We saw Free Willy too.
That's
In
right.
the theaters, yeah.
I think
Man.
Lion King was my first in the theaters.
Free Willy was prophetic for the documentary Blackfish.
Whoa.
Like
They
they were
were-
calling the shot. Like
they
we
were
shouldn't be
ringing that
doing this
bell.
to these animals a
We should-
long time ago.
We should
Right.
free them.
Maybe they should live in the ocean.
Right.
They can jump very high.
Dude, what an
Oh.
iconic scene.
Oh,
But how
it's
cool
so
is it to
good.
get to eat nachos and watch a whale right in front of you as an American? Good for us.
Do tricks.
But whales drown.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that. Thanks for telling us.
You're welcome.
So now we can support the whales.
Yeah, so don't take them for granted.
Yeah, don't take whales for granted. Before we
Yeah.
get to that, though,
Okay.
the real stuff to come from that, you had a fun little bit
I did.
that everybody loved and just ate up,
Yes.
making a
Uh-huh.
little fun of us.
Uh-huh.
Tell us about, why don't you just tell us how much you got to enjoy making a little joke, calling me and Ryan tools in a very creative way. Maybe we can roll the clip.
You will always remember this illustration. I have a little toolbox right here, and it's full of little tools. We have a little hammer, so cute. Cute little saw, little tape measure. Oh my gosh, how did this tool get in here? I don't. But then we grew up. And we're not little anymore. And the hammer grows up, and the hammer is now a big hammer. And the saw now becomes a big saw. And the tape measure becomes a big tape measure. And oh my gosh, all these tools. Steph, I dedicate this part of the sermon to you. You're welcome. This is a power tool. You know, I didn't know I had power tools in here. Anyways, worth it. In case you're wondering, who are the two least offended people in the building right now? These two guys, all right? So calm down.
That was probably the most fun I ever had preaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know at the
Wow.
last service, Steph was right down there in the front row, and I dedicated
Phenomenal.
that moment to her.
Oh, good.
Yeah. What I
Happy
should have
for
said
her.
to everybody is nobody is more pleased with this than Ethan's wife. What I did say at a few of them, the two most unoffended guys in the building are Ryan and Ethan, so calm down.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's so funny. I've never had more people come up to me, like,
Yeah.
kind of concerned, like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, were you like,
I'm
kind
like,
of
you should
offended by
hear
that?
the stuff we say to each other
No,
about, like,
that
when
was-
we're not on stage.
That was tame. And,
Yeah.
and not only that, but I feel so loved in
Yeah.
those moments.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
understand.
nice.
Maybe there's something wrong with us.
I already
but-
know I'm a tool. That didn't hurt my feelings
No,
at all.
it means you're secure.
I've known that since I was like 15. That's just part of my identity.
Yeah.
But thanks for calling me a power tool.
And then, yeah,
You're
that was
welcome.
good.
Meant a lot.
That was really good.
Uh-huh.
And then so many people were fired up, like, "You got to get him back. You got to get him back."
Yeah, I said, I'm going to kill him.
Well, it was really fun. I enjoyed.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good, man.
And
So-
just knowing, because it was like 3/4 of the way through the message. So just knowing the whole time, I'm
That's
like,
coming back.
Yeah.
I get
if
to
people aren't
do
into this, they will be.
Yeah.
They'll get
Doesn't
this.
matter how this
You-
sermon's going, it's about to go
Okay,
great.
this is so funny. At the
Yes.
4 p.m. on Saturday,
Okay.
when you brought out Ryan's picture and everyone
Mhm.
recognized, like, oh, that's pretty funny. There was a lady in the front row who just immediately got up and left. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
No
I can't
way.
believe that lady's so offended. So I kept checking back and she kept not being there.
She
I
was
like,
right
oh
in the front
my
row.
gosh. She really was that mad, but then she came back eventually. I think she took a phone call.
Oh, okay.
But for a while, I was
Just
like,
like-
wow, somebody really cares about Ryan. So
Sometimes
that's
you want to
funny.
just ask people like, oh, when you walk out of
I
the
wanted
room,
to stop him like,
well, it's like,
Why are you leaving?
I think some people go like this, like I have to talk to somebody in the lobby
Yeah.
or go to the bathroom or take a phone call.
Yeah.
You're like, be mindful of when you do that because everybody in the room can see you and they're all thinking you were just offended and you're leaving the
And
sermon.
also,
Yeah.
if you have a small bladder or an emergency or a phone call,
Don't
someone
sit in the front
don't
row.
sit in the front.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Because the guy who's preaching we notice that every time, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
I feel
did-
like there's always somebody in the front middle who
Yeah.
gets up to leave.
Yeah. I remember saying something pretty hardcore that Jesus had said in a sermon, and I watched a lady get her purse and stand up and leave, and I was like, I know exactly why you just left.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Mhm.
sorry, but I'm not. Anyway,
That's
so
fine.
if you
Right.
plan to leave a few times during a sermon, please don't sit in the front.
Right.
So thank you for that fun little bit, Doug.
You're welcome.
Back to Wales.
Yes. Okay. I said, and I don't remember where I heard this. It was a long time ago or read this or whatever. But whales, the number one way they die is by drowning, which is really interesting.
How long can a whale hold their breath?
It says 45 minutes to about an hour and a half.
You knew I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half.
It's not very long.
What?
How long can you? How long?
You do better, Kayla.
How long can you hold your breath, Kayla?
I was going to say,
How long can
I was literally about to say, that is so long
That caught me off
to
guard.
hold your breath.
To be completely
How long can
alone.
you hold your breath?
Well, like, I don't know, 45 seconds?
Okay, but I do, for an animal that lives in the ocean, I get what you mean. Where it's like,
That's
dang,
a big
okay,
animal.
yeah,
Big lungs.
those are big lungs. But that means they have to surface.
A lot.
I would say more often than I ever would have thought.
Be hard
Yeah.
to sleep.
Yeah, how did they do that?
Yeah. Well, I remember as a kid learning
I
about
read
that
that.
when you realize, oh, whales aren't fish. Whales are mammals.
Yeah.
They don't have gills.
I think
They
most
can't
people
breathe
realize that in your
underwater.
sermon.
I think a lot of people-
I don't think anyone knew that. Speaking for myself.
Uh-huh. But I used to think as a kid in elementary school, I remember thinking, man, that kind of sucks for whales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be in the ocean and that's your home, but you have to,
Yeah.
your whole life has to kind of revolve around staying near the surface so that you can breathe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I made the point, they have to live on purpose in order to live in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In ways that fish don't,
Mhm.
because they are in the ocean, but they're not of the ocean. Because their life source, oxygen, is outside of the ocean. It's on they have to surface to breathe that in. And obviously the metaphor is we are in this world, but we are not of the world.
Mhm.
And to live in a world that you're not of, you need to live on purpose in a way where you can surface and tap into the presence of God, which is where that's what our spirits, our souls breathe that in and run off of that and need it, or else you will start to drown in the world that you live in, you know, and the more that you find yourself drowning in.
How common is it for you to hear someone say, I feel like I'm drowning right now?
Oh, all the time.
You know?
All the time. And for people to show up to church and during worship, they go, I haven't felt this good in a long time. It's, well, you
just came up for air.
You just came up for air.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's why.
Because by the way, the flesh loves the world.
Yeah.
The flesh feasts on the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we're seeing even in the fast is as people are like, why do I feel so close to God?
Mm.
It's because you're coming up for air more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's because you're spending more time away from the stuff of the world and you're coming up and you're
Getting-
giving your spirit what the spirit needs.
Deep breaths you need. Yeah, it's like a battle. Your flesh wants to drown the spirit, and your spirit wants to drown the flesh.
Yeah.
And we as humans kind of just go back and forth. But it
Mhm.
is a cool reality to think of. Like, we actually ultimately don't belong here. We're in it, but not of it, right? So we have a home that we belong, and we get gasps of that and breaths of heaven
Mm-hmm.
in those moments of worship, in fasting and praying, in the word, in those times with God that fill you for now.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me feel so excited for
Yeah.
when that's just your life, always,
Oh,
forever.
dude, yeah.
You just feel like you have everything fully, like
Yeah.
that breath.
That's it.
man.
Yep.
Give me
All
that.
the time.
Dude, or even like, I'm hungry, so I'm thinking about food. Even like a good meal with good friends where there's like no comparison and no competing and everyone's just laughing and having a great time. And you drive home and you're like, I feel so good right now.
Mm.
You're
like-
secure.
It's like, yeah, that's what new
Mhm.
heavens and new earth
Mm.
are going to be like.
Mhm.
Like
So
you're
here's
getting a breath.
Here's a thought, a great purpose statement for us as believers. Be a breath of fresh air.
There you
of
go.
heaven air
Of heaven air.
to people.
That's great.
Whatever your job is, wherever you are, be that breath to people that feels like, man, I'm coming up to the surface by interacting with this person because they're bringing things that aren't of this world. They're bringing things from where I really, really belong, what I crave, what I want.
That's a great mission statement.
I like that. Be a breath of fresh air. There's a lot of ocean metaphors. There's also what I heard recently. 10% of the oceans have 90% of the life.
Really?
Yeah. So
The reefs?
reefs,
Yeah,
coastal
coasts.
seas. So because they need the sunlight and they need to be close to the surface. And so there's something there too. Even around, I remember hearing that when we were doing Kingdom Builders, and I was like, man, I got to talk about fasting, or not fasting, but tithing this week. And I heard that stat on, I was watching this, Our Planet or Planet or Two or something like that. And it said, 10% of the oceans have 90% of.
Which is funny because like
the
when you go
life.
snorkeling,
Yeah.
you kind of just assume like that's the ocean always.
Mhm.
That's not true. That's
Yeah.
like, that's one little spot where all the fish are hanging out.
Yeah.
But most of the ocean is just blue water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So, no, I don't know.
Tons
I
of
haven't completed that metaphor in my brain, but there's one there for sure.
If you've got one, comment that metaphor.
Yeah, but it's close.
We are getting
to
more
the,
people commenting on episodes.
I like that.
Appreciate that. Keep it up.
Even in the ocean, the closer you get to the surface, even if you don't fully breathe it in, there's more life. And I don't know. That might be like a metaphor of like people wanting to be around. People of the world, if you will, should want to be around Christians.
Right.
And something draws that. There's like a life that sort of draws them in. Like, what is it that you guys have access to that I don't know about?
Yeah.
And I want to be around you because it shows in your life.
Eugene Peterson in The Message, when he talks about Jesus telling us to be salt and light, he says, bring out the God flavors and the God colors of this world. That's what we're supposed to do.
Right,
Where most of the time people think of Christians as like doling everything.
Right.
But we're actually supposed to make life vibrant and heavenly because we have access to that and we can bring it here. So be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, showing that God's plans are actually not, everybody thinks it's more boring or it's more straight-laced or it's more, heaven will be awesome, but just be well-behaved and tuck in your shirt right now.
Yeah.
But actually God's plans are way better than what the world has to offer.
And how many stories are there of thinking that narrative that faith stuff is boring and I don't want that life and diving all into the world? We each lived that story.
Right.
And I remember moments where I would have described my life as drowning in the world.
Oh, yeah.
All the things that I thought were going to bring me life, all the things I thought would fill me up, and now I feel like I'm drowning and I don't know what to do. That is a desperate place to be, but that's where so many people have to get to, including myself, to finally realize, okay, maybe there is something beyond this and I need to go figure that out and finding that life in Jesus. Let's talk about Granite.
Granite? Yeah. What do you want to know? I know everything about granite.
Well,
or I could call my buddy. We could FaceTime him.
What's your favorite type of granite?
Ooh. Countertops.
Good. That's a perfect answer. Your story of your friend who sells granite and has built a very successful business and life off of it. His passion is not granite. His passion is the life that granite has allowed him to live.
Correct. Yeah.
That's such a great story.
He never grew up as a kid. When we're asked the question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or we're asked the question today, what is your passion and how do you follow your passion and how do you make your career your passion? I said, don't be fooled by good sounding captions on Instagram. There are careers where that is your exact passion, and that's awesome. But that's not the mold everybody has to have, because we pastor people all the time who go from job to job to job, a new one every year, because they think my job has to also be my passion, and obviously it's not here, and now it's obviously not here, and maybe it's the next one. And then you go on social media and you're like, it sure seems like everybody's jobs are their passion and everybody has found something that I haven't found. And I was joking about my friend. He never was a kid who thought, you know what I am passionate about? Granite and countertops. And if I could somehow combine the two one day, that would be the most passionate life I could ever imagine. No, he started a company selling granite and has created a life. Granite has helped him create a life where he lives more on purpose than almost anybody I've ever met. I think you'll find, like, my friend, he's very passionate about his family. He's very passionate about the life he can give his kids and the trips and adventures they can go on together. And that's all because of Granite. And he has a lot of conversations with clients and employees, and that's because of Granite. And he gives to this church and is very generous and is a kingdom builder. And the reason he can do that is because of Granite. So Granite is not his passion, but you'll be surprised how passionate you get about Granite when it allows you to live on purpose in every other part of your life.
So important, man.
And so don't be fooled by that mold of you have to, your job actually has to be your passion. I think you can find a lot of contentment and purpose in selling Granite, whatever that is for you. And if you do it well and you give, like Colossians says, if you do everything you do, you work at it as if you're doing it for Jesus. Everything you do, even if it's granite countertops, it will be blessed and could open up a world to you that you are very passionate about, where you feel very rich in purpose. And so maybe that's for somebody. I'm betting it's for a lot of people. I talk to a lot of guys about this, young guys who are desperately searching for that and can't find it. Find a granite countertop thing that you can get really good at. And get really good at it.
Really good.
And give it time and watch how you start to find passion in it as it starts to open up a world to you.
And don't fall into the trap of thinking that this guy loves 100% of every day and every single thing that he has to do.
Right.
If he was here, he would say, I have difficult days. I have conversations I don't want to have. There's moments where I want to quit. All of that is part of, to go back to what we started this conversation with, learning how to play that long game and learning how to embrace the difficulty and the challenges and the days where you just don't want to do it, but pushing through and doing it anyways. Like, that's part of finding that passion within it, you know?
It's a good caution, because if you right now in your current place in life, if right now you can't find purpose where you are, it's very likely you won't find it in the next thing, because purpose is so much more about your posture than it is your circumstances. And so I think that was a great way of illustrating to people, you can find purpose right here where you are. Don't wait for that one day when you finally feel it because the perfect job and the perfect situation aligns. Find purpose where you are today. Then you can move to thing to thing. You can go from good days and bad, but you still live with purpose. I also always want to lift off the obligation of vocational ministry off of people. I think that's one of the challenges of going to church is you hear a pastor talk about purpose and you're like, well, yeah, you live it because you preach the gospel. Your whole life is devoted to Jesus in this very upfront career way. But man, if you can get peace about the body of Christ and realize some people are called to vocational ministry, most are not, but their vocational ministry is still vocational ministry. It's just not working at a church. That is freedom that I think a lot of people need. Because it's easy to go to church and get involved at a church and serve and be like, I feel so much purpose here. That must mean I'm supposed to work here. I'm supposed to work at a church. But actually, maybe it is, but it more likely is you're just experiencing what happens when you serve. You're experiencing what happens when you pour out for other people, when you build the kingdom, when you see your gifts and talents put to use that serve somebody else and lead somebody else to Jesus. So let that be like the driving range, like the training ground. When you experience those things to then drive you into the place that you're called career-wise, or what you're good at, or a gift that you have, could be Granite type thing. But with those gifts and those things you have found purpose through, bring those and apply those there. It doesn't mean you have to work at a church.
Right. A career doesn't have to be an ends to purpose. It can be a means to purpose. And see it as that. And there's a lot more things that can go on your list for potential careers for you. And then pick one of them and get really good at it. And stick it out. Give it time.
That's also
Yeah.
so true of relationships.
Oh,
I think a
yeah.
lot of couples and divorces happen because couples start to feel like, well, we just kind of don't, we don't have a purpose here. They may not say that word to it,
Mhm.
but why are we married anymore? Like, what is the purpose of this if we're not feeling happy or whatever, and expecting marriage to be the
Right.
ends
Right.
rather than the means where, hey, well, let's go find a mutual purpose together. Let's
Right.
create that together. That will drive your marriage forward, your purpose of your marriage. You can apply that in so many areas of your life.
Yeah.
And shout out to Tim Keller real quick, because Meaning of Marriage is the book we always say for marriage in that regard.
Yeah.
But he has another book called Every Good Endeavor.
Oh, yeah.
That's all about work
Mhm.
and finding purpose in your work, whatever that work is. And so
Mm-hmm.
if this episode is speaking to you, Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller, and of course Garden City by John Mark Comer is also really good in this
Mhm.
regards.
But then even also Tim Keller for that book, Meaning of Marriage, because I mentioned, it was the chapter we just read for our small group about Michelangelo carving the
Mhm.
David,
Yeah.
and how it was a block of marble with the masterpiece within, and Michelangelo, who was 26 when
Wow.
he carved that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It just kind of makes you go, what am I doing
Yeah.
with my life?
Yes.
But he said, all I did was take away the bits of the marble that weren't David,
Yeah.
and how that's a picture of marriage. And there's also purpose to be found in marriage, not just for the thing that the two of you do together to make a difference in the world, but in the way that you are part of each other's journey of becoming the masterpiece that God made each of you to be individually.
Yeah.
You can attest to this. You're not the same person as you were 10 years ago when you got married.
No.
Neither is Steph. Neither is Sam. Neither am I. You change so much throughout marriage.
Mhm.
And ideally, you're on a journey from going from more marble to more and more masterpiece.
Mhm.
And Kathy Keller, her quote, which I love, is when looking for a spouse, most people are looking for a finished statue. When what they should be looking for is a wonderful block of marble where you can love the marble
Great.
and love the flaws and all the struggles and everything, but then also see the masterpiece that God is making that person into. And essentially marriage and giving vows at a wedding is you saying, I want in on what God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
Making you from the former life to the new creation, the old self to the new self, the marble to the masterpiece. I see glimpses of who God is making you, and I'm all in. I want to be part of that. And there's purpose in that idea right there.
Yeah.
Just rather than even what you guys go do together and the company you start, or the mission trip you go on, or the whatever. Like, there's purpose in helping each other become who God made you to be.
Yeah.
So there's what I'm trying to say is there is unlimited purpose to be found in the marriage you're in,
Yes.
just in that
Yep.
right now.
Mhm.
You just have to see it that way and look for it. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
It's great.
But
Well, I hope that it helps people take some tangible steps or find some peace with where they're at when it comes to seeking to live on purpose. And attaching one of the biggest buzz questions recently has always been, maybe it's been in the past 2 decades. What's your why? What's your why? What's your why? Attaching that to companies, and that's why Apple is so much better at marketing than everyone else, because they tell you why, not what they do. When you finally
who's
realize,
this, Simon Sinek?
yeah,
Start with Y-E.
whose TED Talk was that? It was long ago. Was it him?
Simon
Was it him? That's probably why you said that.
It is why I said that.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah. This guy's playing the infinite game over here.
When you find that
leaders, you
why,
last.
it can start driving purpose in your life in a different way. When you find the why of ultimately God's calling,
Yeah.
his purposes,
Yeah.
his will over yours, that your why no longer is surrounding what do I want and is this, because that's going to change and fluctuate so much. But when you finally attach that why to the purposes of God,
Yeah.
then you start living the life
Exactly.
that you're looking
Yeah.
for.
That's right.
The part of the message that I could just feel it in the room, in that tool metaphor, when it was like the little tools kind of represent us as kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? And imagine the hammer saying, I want to be a saw.
Yeah.
And the saw saying, I want to be a hammer. And then they grow up and the hammer still wants to be a saw. And the carpenter's ready to use it as a hammer, what it was made on purpose for a purpose to do. But it goes, no, I don't want to, I want to do this. I want to be a saw. And so I try to use the hammer as a saw, and I try to use the saw as a hammer. And I said, I just want you to notice there's a lot of frustration and there's very little fruit.
Yeah.
And then you could, and there was like a kind of like a gasp in the room of, oh yes. Yeah. And meanwhile, this hammer, like if the hammer's not careful, it'll go home sad thinking, so you're saying I can't do what a saw can do? That it will completely miss how
It was designed.
perfectly designed it is to do what a hammer can do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And or you'll get on social media, you get on Instagram, and you'll look to the left and to the right, and we kind of grow up thinking that's the coolest job to do.
Yeah.
That has the most clout. That is the highest paying. That has the most influence, the most power, the most glamorous chair is that chair, and I want that one. And your calling becomes a casualty of comparison.
Yeah.
And we just have had so many of those because of social media. So many of them. And you'll go home sad thinking, so I can't be whatever I want just because I want to be, and do whatever I want to do just because I want to do it, that you'll completely miss how insane it is that the maker of the universe actually designed you to do something
Right.
perfectly.
Yes.
Like that's wild. And I said this, I said, I'd be in the NBA right now if you could just do whatever you want to do, but I can't. I could get my Rudy Rudiger spirit on. And then I thought of this in the message. That movie, Rudy, you could use that, and it's an awesome movie. I love that guy's story. It's that movie gets me to cry every single time. But he was a guy who's not made to play D1 college football. Shout out to Notre Dame. And he gave his whole life to proving everybody wrong and that he could do it. And he did. However, before you go, see, I can do that, let's just be honest about what he did. He gave his whole life and worked every single day for one dream. And he got into one game. And because the team was up, he got to go in for one special teams play.
Yes.
And then he made a tackle. So you can do that.
Very little fruit.
Very little fruit and a lot of frustration. And it
Yeah.
might be a really cool underdog story, but just know what you're signing up for.
Right.
Versus doing what you are.
That's really good, bro.
Doing what you're like made to do, where you find yourself, I believe, I mean, what they now say, the young people, like in the flow state.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fruit. There's just fruit
Yeah.
that just kind of follow your fruit.
Yes.
Fruit just kind of comes easy.
Yeah.
And there's impact that just, you're in your lane.
Yeah.
And you go, man, I was made to do what I'm doing. And you don't get distracted looking to the left or looking to the right, wondering, I wish I was more like Ethan, or I wish I could unpack that more like Ryan in a message or whatever it is. It's no, I was made exactly the way God made me. And I'm going to work on becoming that, because what my wife needs and what my kids need and what our church needs is for me to become all that God made me to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I can do that
Dude,
better than anybody else in the
so
world.
good, man.
I think to mix these metaphors all together, so many people are drowning in comparison and need to come up to the surface for a breath of identity.
Yeah.
Of realizing that you are uniquely made, and you don't have to be like every TikTok influencer and every person on Instagram whose life looks this certain way, because you just drown in that. You never feel like you're enough. You never can have that life and be this person, but you try to do it all. You try to become a bunch of things that you won't or shouldn't, and in the end probably don't even want to be, when you can actually find identity simply in just who you are.
Yeah,
One of the cool
man.
things, John Tyson, who's a pastor in New York, he took his son when he was in high school through a gamut of different personality, spiritual gifts, like a bunch of different tests with him, and had his son go through each of them so that he could help his son to see the things he was had strengths in, things he was gifted in, where those could lead him, but also to help him see weaknesses in himself for things that he'd need to work on, but also things to just say like, and this probably for me won't be the career path I'd go on, because that's just not one of my strengths. And from a young age gave him some clear, unique identity to say, you actually don't need to be like your best friend or that kid over there. Here's some of how God made you. So let's unlock that and help that determine the future you walk into from here.
Yeah.
Why don't they do that stuff in high school?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know, man.
It'd be so helpful.
Like what do you want to be when you grow up is a really fun question. We'll do that with my kids. We do it all the time. It's really fun.
Yeah.
But the question, who did God make you to become?
Yeah.
I want to, I just have Will, my 6-year-old, in my mind. I want to raise him around that question to answer that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who did God make you to be? And how can I, encourage you in that?
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that flow state, long before scientists had the phrase flow state, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary, and I'll give you rest for your souls."
Mhm.
Right? So 2,000 years before we even had language for it, Jesus is like, no, if you just come to me and you do this my way, you're going to find yourself getting more done in less time.
Mhm.
You're going to find yourself being less frustrated along the way, and you're going to find
Mhm.
yourself bearing fruit as you go.
And at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants.
That's what we're looking
More
for.
than you want this role or that chair or that life. You want fruit.
That's it.
Yeah. Because it's fruit is what God does through you, but it's also the fruit of the Spirit you experience in the process. Love, joy, and peace, and contentment.
right.
Yeah, all of that. So,
I want some fruit right now, man.
what's your favorite fruit?
Blueberries.
Yeah,
Blueberries.
I was gonna say joy.
Oh, patience for me.
Wow, guy's so holy.
I stand
I
by mine.
exercise that so much on this podcast with my co-hosts. Keep fasting, keep going, keep pressing in, keep coming up to the surface to get those deep heavenly breaths. Let it fill you. Find purpose where you are today.
Yeah.
Also had a great idea for another bit, recommendations with Ryan,
Sure.
because you always have good book recommendations. So maybe some of that, some Watch Doug coming up, some more
That's
Dr. Doug coming up,
that's
more
coming
questions
next
with
week.
Kayla coming up. We will be back for episode 72, and there's rumors that it's going to be just bonkers.
Oh,
so
yeah,
get
dude.
ready.
Get ready.